Stephen A. Smith just dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming. Caitlin Clark has reportedly quit Team USA after being benched from the Olympic roster. This isn't speculation anymore. The loudest voice in sports media confirmed what everyone suspected. Clark is done seeking validation from people who never wanted her there. The golden girl of basketball went silent, but the fallout is deafening. This changes everything about women's basketball moving forward. Do you think Caitlin Clark made the right decision walking away from Team USA? Or should she have fought harder for her spot? Drop your opinion in the comments. Stephen A. Smith doesn't just make noise for the sake of attention. When he commits to a narrative this hard, it means something significant is happening behind the scenes. His recent commentary about Caitlin Clark and Team USA isn't just criticism of a roster decision. It's an expose of systemic dysfunction within women's basketball that's been festering for years and has now exploded into public view. The Olympic roster announcement was supposed to be routine. USA Basketball releases names. Fans react for a day. Then everyone moves on to the next news cycle. Instead, when the leak started confirming that Caitlin Clark, the woman single-handedly selling out arenas that had been empty for decades, was left off the roster, the reaction wasn't confusion. It was rage. The basketball community couldn't comprehend how the most popular player in women's basketball wasn't making the Olympic team. The official explanation from the selection committee was weak from the start. They talked about experience requirements and the 3-year commitment needed to be part of the core group. On paper, that sounds logical and reasonable, but it completely ignores the reality of what Clark represents for the sport. You don't leave Michael Jordan at home because he's new to the league. You don't bench Tiger Woods because he hasn't paid his dues long enough. You take the best talent, the biggest draw, and you put them on the plane. That's how professional sports operate when they're functioning properly. But here's where this story gets genuinely disturbing. Insiders started leaking information suggesting this wasn't an oversight or a mistake based on merit evaluation. This was a deliberate message being sent. Sources close to the selection process revealed concerns about how veteran players would react to Clark's presence. The committee was apparently worried about the circus she brings, the media attention that follows her everywhere. Essentially, they prioritize protecting the feelings of established veterans over growing the game and maximizing the team's marketability. This is exactly where Stephen A. Smith drew his line in the sand. He didn't just disagree with the decision. He called out the fundamental stupidity of prioritizing comfort over competition and business sense. Smith went on national television and systematically dismantled every justification the committee offered. His argument was devastatingly simple and impossible to refute. The Olympics is a global showcase that happens once every 4 years. It's the one moment when casual fans who normally ignore women's basketball tune in to watch. The sport has been struggling with viewership for decades, despite producing incredible talent. Suddenly, you have a player bringing in millions of eyeballs, setting television records, and selling out arenas in cities that couldn't give away tickets the previous season. And the committee's response was to leave her at home. But are we really trying to go to grow the game because this is the most popular women's basketball player in the world? And it ain't close. They had to move the Mystic game to an NBA arena. Name the time. And I'm going to turn it over to you because I don't want to get long-winded. I want somebody, one of our women colleagues, Stephen A., to tell me when a WNBA game has had to be moved because of a woman player. Just one. Just tell me one. Because I know in her attendance, she's averaging about 17,000. All the other WNBA games in which she's not a participant average about 7. So are we really trying to go to games? Is that what we're really trying to do? Or are we just talking about we're trying to grow the game and just bulljibe? Smith argued this was a marketing disaster of historic proportions. He pointed out that Team USA isn't really about winning gold medals anymore. They win gold almost automatically, regardless of who's on the roster. The talent gap between the United States and the rest of the world is so massive that they could send a college all-star team and probably still dominate. The actual goal should have been growing the game, expanding the brand, bringing new audiences into women's basketball permanently. By excluding Clark, Smith argued that the gatekeepers prove they care more about their internal hierarchy and protecting egos than the actual success and growth of the league. He insinuated there's a level of incompetence running the show that's almost impossible to comprehend unless you factor in deliberate malice. They didn't just miss an opportunity, they actively rejected it. And according to Smith, this disrespect is something Clark isn't going to forget. He hinted that the bridge might already be burned permanently, and that Clark's camp is taking detailed notes on every person who stayed silent during this process. What the WNBA does? You got a max salary at $250,000. You had attended, although it was trending in the right direction, certainly wasn't where you wanted it to be. And as Shannon pointed out just the other day, you got a team in the Indiana Fever with their struggling selves, struggling to win a damn game and be relevant. No team in the WNBA was worse other than the winless Washington Mystics, okay? And they went from 4,000 in attendance to 17,000. This girl is box office. I said a rising tide lifts all boats. What you do, especially if you're Team USA and you're trying to be globalized, and it's an opportunity to globalize the WNBA brand. So people like Brittany Griner, God bless her soul, and others don't have to go to Russia in the off-season. If we're being completely honest about why Caitlin Clark isn't in Paris right now, we have to address the jealousy factor. It's the narrative the WNBA establishment desperately wants to avoid discussing publicly, but it's the only explanation that makes all the pieces fit together logically. The phrasing sounded less like helpful advice and more like a threat. Then you had Cheryl Swoops, another icon of the sport, incorrectly questioning Clark's college records and suggesting she was only dominant because she took excessive shots. The criticism felt personal and targeted rather than analytical. Why were these legends so pressed about a 22-year-old who hadn't even stepped on a professional court yet? Why were they actively trying to diminish her accomplishments before she had a chance to prove herself at the next level? The theory that Stephen A. Smith has alluded to repeatedly is straightforward. The old guard resents the attention Clark receives. These veterans played their entire careers in empty gyms. They flew commercial airlines. They ground out professional careers for minimal pay and virtually no mainstream recognition. Now here comes someone from Iowa who has private jets waiting for her, Nike deals worth tens of millions, and fans lining up around entire city blocks before she's played a single professional game. It's human nature to feel envious under those circumstances, but in professional sports, veterans usually embrace the rookie who brings money into the sport because everyone benefits financially. When Tiger Woods exploded onto the golf scene and transformed that sport's popularity, the other golfers didn't hate him. They thanked him because he tripled their prize money and brought massive sponsorship deals to the entire tour. But in the WNBA, the reaction has been the polar opposite. It feels like certain players want to punish Clark for her popularity rather than capitalize on it. That toxicity is exactly why Clark might be secretly relieved she didn't make the Olympic team. The resentment didn't stay confined to press conferences and social media posts. It spilled onto the court in ways that raised serious concerns about player safety. If you've been watching the games closely, you've noticed that Caitlin Clark gets hit differently than other players. We're not talking about tough physical defense within the rules. We're talking about non-basketball plays that cross clear lines. The Kennedy Carter incident became the most visible example. Clark was blindsided with a hip check while the ball wasn't even in play. Carter appeared to say something to her and knocked her to the floor in what looked like a deliberate cheap shot. But examine the reaction from the league and other players. Did the WNBA suspend Carter immediately to protect their biggest asset? No. Did veteran players rush to Clark's defense and call out the inappropriate contact? No. In fact, many players and media personalities seemed to justify it. They called it welcome to the league mentality. They said Clark needed to toughen up and accept this treatment. Stephen A. Smith pointed this out as a massive and obvious double standard. If this were LeBron James or Steph Curry getting cheap-shotted by a lesser-known player, the league would hand down immediate suspensions to protect their marketable asset. But with Clark, it felt like open season. This connects directly to the Olympic situation. Why would Clark want to board a plane and spend an entire month in a foreign country with teammates who either participated in this treatment or stood by silently and watched it happen? The Olympic roster is composed of the very women who have been making Clark's professional life difficult for months. The trust is completely gone. You cannot build genuine team chemistry with people who seem to actively want to see you fail or get hurt. The environment would be toxic at best and potentially dangerous at worst. This brings us to the most explosive part of the current situation: the rumored soft quit. After the initial roster was announced and the backlash reached deafening levels, there were reports that USA Basketball might offer Clark an alternate position. Basically, she would be on standby in case of injury. It's a consolation prize designed to let the committee save face by saying they still value her without actually giving her a real roster spot. But sources close to the situation suggest Clark had absolutely zero interest in being someone's backup plan. The rumor circulating in basketball circles is that she politely but firmly communicated that if she wasn't considered good enough for the main roster, she had no interest in waiting in the wings, hoping for an injury to give her playing time. This is what constitutes the soft quit. Clark didn't hold a dramatic press conference. She didn't throw a public tantrum on social media. She simply and quietly withdrew her availability. Stephen A. Smith's recent commentary strongly supports this theory. He implied that Clark has fully realized her power and leverage in the situation. She is the economy of the WNBA right now. She doesn't need Team USA to build her personal brand. Team USA needed her to build theirs and boost their television ratings. By walking away and taking the month to rest her body instead, she's effectively communicating that the committee made their bed and now they can lie in it. It's a power move that demonstrates remarkable maturity and business sense. It's driving the establishment crazy because they expected her to beg for the alternate position. They expected gratitude for any scraps they offered. Instead, she's taking a vacation while they play in front of television audiences that will likely be half the size they could have been with her presence. Let's discuss the numbers because quantifiable data doesn't lie about impact. The Clark effect is absolutely real and completely measurable. Games featuring Caitlin Clark are drawing viewership numbers the WNBA hasn't seen in over 2 decades. We're talking about 300% to 400% increases in ratings compared to games without her involvement. When Clark plays, arenas sell out completely. When she visits opposing teams, those organizations have to move games to larger NBA arenas to accommodate the crowd demand. She is literally a walking stimulus package for the entire league. Stephen A. Smith hammered this economic point home repeatedly. The Olympics is fundamentally a television product. NBC paid enormous sums for broadcasting rights. They want and need strong ratings to justify that investment. By leaving Clark at home, the selection committee essentially lit millions of dollars on fire. The revenge here is completely passive on Clark's part. She doesn't have to do anything active. She just has to stay home and rest. When the Olympic game ratings come in and they are significantly lower than random Indiana Fever regular season games, the point will be proven without her saying a single word. This financial reality is what makes the selection decision so genuinely baffling. It's not just a questionable sports decision. It's objectively terrible business. In the world of professional sports, losing money is typically the one unforgivable sin that gets decision-makers fired. Yet somehow this committee made a choice that actively damaged their financial product. We need to address the toxic culture that allowed this situation to develop. There's a growing narrative among fans and observers that the WNBA has a serious mean girl problem. It operates like an exclusive clique or sorority where you must be initiated, and the initiation process is intentionally brutal. For years, the league has been an incredibly tight-knit community. Everyone knows everyone. They play overseas together during the off-season. They share a collective struggle narrative. Clark represents something completely different. She represents mainstream acceptance. She represents the casual fan demographic. And the insiders seem to genuinely resent casual fans. You see this attitude constantly on social media. WNBA purists getting angry that new fans only care about Clark. They post things like, "We've been here for years supporting the league. You need to support all the players, not just her." It's a technically valid point about recognizing all talent, but the delivery is consistently hostile and unwelcoming. Instead of rolling out the red carpet for new eyeballs and new revenue, they're interrogating people's credentials and gatekeeping who gets to be a real fan. Stephen A. Smith just confirmed what everyone suspected. Caitlin Clark is done with Team USA after they chose egos over excellence.